What's up, people viewing via YouTube? My name is Pat, otherwise known as RageRover, and in today's video I am going to be taking you into my fifth and final garage in the mini-series in GTA Online. And this particular garage, once again, just like the last one, garage number 4, it doesn't really have a good theme setting, so therefore it's not like a muscle car garage or anything like that, or anything of that nature. It's basically just a huge mashup mixture of different vehicles, and these are just ones that I found odd but interesting and just something that I really am into. But with that out of the way, guys, let's just get right into it and let me take you into my fifth garage. Okay, first up in my garage here we have my Albany Manana. Now, Albany being a Cadillac knockoff, so to speak, I believe this car to be based off of that of a early 70s, maybe very late 60s Cadillac Eldorado. And I could understand different amenities from a General Motors type car, just because the front end to me looks like that of a maybe a mid 70s, maybe late 70s Buick. Can't tell you exactly which model, but overall, just because of the tail end of the car, it kind of to me looks like a Cadillac. So therefore I'm just going to go with Cadillac Eldorado for this overall car design, and I just went with a simple build on this one. The only thing that might stick out is the fact that it's rocking curb feelers, which is something that you would typically find on a 70s Cadillac, especially one that's been kind of quote-unquote pimped out with a good classic paint job, white wall tires, chrome wheels, etc., etc. But overall, I mean, it's just a convertible cruiser that I just like to possess, just because it looks like a good cruiser to have in general. So that is that. Alright, moving right along into another Cadillac slash knockoff. We have the Albany Emperor, and the Emperor has been around forever, but in this case, since GTA 4, I believe, it has now taken form of that of a Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham. Particularly something from probably the late 70s all the way through the 80s, and yeah, it is definitely that of the vehicle you see here. Now when it came to this car, yeah, I just kept it like a unaltered original, all original car, with basically typical paint scheme that you would find in the 80s for these Cadillacs, white wall tires and these chrome spoked wheels. And that's really about it. I mean, I just kind of have it as just a unaltered cruiser, but I mean, it's just odd. Not a whole lot of people possess such a vehicle to just kind of cruise around in. So I figured, you know what, I like these Cadillacs from the 60s, even 50s, all the way up and through the 80s, and yeah, so I figured I'll have a pair of them sitting side by side right here in this oddball garage of mine. Okay, moving right along to another very oddball vehicle that I possess in my garage. Yeah, it's a station wagon. It's not no race car, it's not fast, it's just another cruising type vehicle. It's actually one of the very slowest vehicles I possess, and this is the Dundreary Regina. And I thought for the longest time that this car would be based off of like an old Vista Cruiser, but it's not rocking a big old bubble going right over the second row seating, going all the way to the back glass. But this vehicle I just have as just a classic station wagon to possess, that because it's kind of based off of, I want to say, an early 70s Chrysler Town and Country, maybe a Fury Sport Suburban station wagon. And yeah, it's nothing special to really talk about, really, so therefore I'm not going to go too far into detail with it, other than the only thing I changed on it was paint and the wheels, just to look like the real-life Chrysler station wagon that it really is. However, the taillights and the back trim piece where you see Dundreary right there kind of looks like something you would find off of a GM muscle car, probably a Chevelle or Malibu or something like that. But other than that, I mean, that's really about it for this oddball station wagon that I actually have in my garage. Okay, next up is my Willard Faction, and I do believe that this vehicle makes its return from Grand Theft Auto 4 in the Lowriders DLC that came out fairly recently. And the Faction, I do believe, is based off of that of the Buick Grand National, just by looking at the overall body lines, especially the front end and the ass end of the car. Some could argue it could be based off of like the Olds Cutlass from the 80s. but I don't really think so, just because the grill on the Cutlasses were split in half, and this one is just all solid one piece. And it being a Grand National, I went with the original counterpart build. Therefore, it's just the simple black paint. I went with mercenary chrome wheels in the muscle car section when you're selecting wheels. And it's the closest I could get to the Grand National wheel, in my opinion. And Grand Nationals back then, it was one of the fastest production cars of the 80s. So therefore, I made this one fast. The only thing I added to it performance-wise was just a simple turbo kit, and that is about it. I didn't really do anything else. I mean, I just kind of kept it simple, just kind of like a simple muscle car from the 80s build, and that's really about it. It's definitely one of my favorite vehicles, and I felt it was appropriate to put it in this garage just because it's just something you don't typically see out on the streets dressed up just like this. Okay, next up we got my Impante Ruiner, and the Ruiner makes its return from, once again, Grand Theft Auto 4, and it's actually kind of one of my other favorite 80s muscle cars, I guess you could say. That's why I felt it appropriate to put it next to the Faction. And now Impante, once again, is known to be a Pontiac knockoff, so therefore this F-body quote-unquote car, I guess you could say, is blended of that of the Firebird / Trans Am and a Camaro, kind of put all in one. And the reason being is the decals on the sides of the vehicle and also the tail lights match that of a Camaro, and the front end just looks like that of a Firebird / Trans Am, kind of. So when I built this car, I just went for originality. I kind of dressed it up to be kind of like a classic IROC Z, which was mostly based for Camaro. So I went with that simple paint and the chrome wheels, which actually these wheels are actually the same exact ones that you find on a stock Ruiner off the street, but I went with a chrome version of it just to kind of dress it up a little bit. And also the spoiler looks to be similar to that of an IROC spoiler. So, and I didn't do anything to make it any more faster than it already is, so just simple, and that's really about it. Alrighty, moving right along to a van. The BF Surfer, which makes its return from, I think we're looking around San Andreas-ish, maybe. But the Surfer, definitely that of a Volkswagen bus, microbus, Samba bus, whatever you might call it. And it's really hard to tell what years it could be coming from. Anywhere from the 50s all the way through the 80s and whatnot. God only knows when this bus was actually created, at least in game. And this one, I believe, is kind of altered, because when you actually either buy this off the website, or if you find one cruising around, that's the cleaned up version and not the beater version. This cleaned up version is already kind of lowered, and there's not much I can really do. I didn't want to lower it anymore. It's already lowered as is, so I just kind of meant with a complete restoration on this one. The only thing that might be slightly altered is, of course, the roof rack, sporting the surfboard on top, which is definitely something of the California style theme, I guess you could say. And I mean, it's no fast vehicle by any means. It's just a slow, simple cruiser, and something that I thought was odd, but something that I really wanted to have, so therefore that's why I have it here in this garage. So other than that, that's where we leave it at. Okay, next up is my Bravado dune loader, and the dune loader obviously is not something that a lot of people actually possess in their garages, from what I can tell at least. If there are people out there that actually have this vehicle in the garage, I give you props, because it's definitely not exactly the best vehicle to have, because it's slow, but it's very capable in my opinion, and it's based off of that of like a Dodge Power Wagon. Undoubtedly, although it is rocking dual front headlights. The grille is slightly different, but overall that's what it is. Now there's not much I can do about the rust on it, because the only way you can get this truck is in the beater version, and the only way to possess it is to go out to like Sandy Shores and hunt for it, and sometimes you'll have to hunt for the one that doesn't have all the crap in the bed of the truck. So when it came to this one, the only thing I did to it was the paint to look like something that you would typically find way back in the 60s and 70s when this truck was really around. And it's definitely a workhorse. And the only other thing I altered on it was the wheels to kind of look like the original wheels of a Dodge Power Wagon. And well, that's that. Okay, next up we got my Albany Lurcher, and this, along with the Frankensteins, or Stange, however you pronounce it, came out with the latest Halloween DLC of 2015. And as soon as I saw the vehicles, I had to have them, so therefore I bought them. This hearse actually replaced the modern day hearse that I did have, which was the Romero hearse, which is the Lincoln based hearse, but I figured this one looks way cooler, and I definitely kind of dressed it up to be like a muscle hearse, I guess you could say. I added some power onto the hood, made it a little bit faster, added the muscle freak wheels along with the white letter tires, and to make it look like that of a classic Buick Riviera hearse, which is that's what this vehicle is based off of. And the Buick Riviera hearse is actually a very rare thing to see, but they are out there, so I dressed it up as such, just to make it look like a muscle hearse that some people actually possess as their own personal way of cruising around at car shows or whatever, or Halloween parties, whatever you might have. And that is about it. Okay, next up is my DeClasse Rancher XL, and the Rancher XL makes its return from, I believe, Vice Cities when we first started seeing the vehicle. Now, this being a civilian version, in the earlier versions of Grand Theft Auto in the series, they were basically dedicated to just being a law enforcement vehicle, I guess you could say. But this being, I would consider it the older version of the DeClasse Granger, which I possess in my first garage that I showed you in the series. But anyways, I'm just rambling on. It's definitely based off of that of a 70s, 80s Chevy or GMC Suburban. Particularly, I'm going to say probably mid 70s-ish, just because of the front fascia. But it's arguable because it's rocking square headlights as opposed to round. It's definitely something from the 80s. I'm going to say probably 84, 85, somewhere in that range. It just depends. And I went for originality when I built the truck. I mean, yeah, it's odd to possess, just because there's not much you can really do with the truck other than try and make it faster and add off-roady wheels, tint the windows, play with the paint. That's about it. So I didn't really do anything as far as that. All I did was just play with the paint and the wheels and tires. Wheels are mil-spec with the off-road tires. And one thing I really like about this truck, actually, believe it or not, is the interior. It's definitely kind of one of a kind, but the interior modeling overall is something you would see in other vehicles, like, for example, the Karen Rebel, which is based off of that small little Toyota pickup truck, whatever it may be. But anyways, when it came to this truck, I mean, I figured because the interior is basically like a chocolate brown, I went with the exterior color with that same color with the white two-tone on underneath, which is a paint scheme that you would actually find on some of these trucks from way back when. And believe it or not, I actually own this particular type of vehicle, but not in suburban form, but in pickup truck form. I own myself a 78 Chevy Custom Deluxe. If you care to look on my channel, you'll actually see some video of it, and I plan on uploading more. But anyways, moving right along, that is my DeClasse Rancher XL. Alright, moving right along to my DeClasse Rhapsody, which I believe makes a reappearance from Grand Theft Auto 4, particularly the Lost and Damned, I think is when I first saw the vehicle come out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but anyways, this vehicle, yeah, it's odd to have, just because it's a pathetic little hatchback from the mid-70s, and yes, I believe it to be based off of an AMC Pacer. Someone was arguing with me earlier in the week, actually, as I'm producing this video, that it's based off of a Gremlin. Well, the two were basically one and the same, but looking at the front end of this vehicle versus the overall shape of this thing, no, to me it's AMC Pacer all the way, and that's what I dressed it up to be, just an all original AMC Pacer, not altered. The only thing I did modify other than paint was wheels and tires, which is something that you typically find on some of these AMC Pacers. And now this I dressed up to be like the AMC Pacer X. If you care to Google it, you'll see there are some minor differences. The reason being is the fact that it's rocking the Rhapsody W, I think is what it says right there, which is basically like AMC Pacer X knockoff. And some of the vehicles did have white letter tires with these Chrysler rally wheels, darkened out a little bit. A little bit of stock window tint, I guess you could say, is what I added to it. I mean, other than that, I just left it as is. Yeah, it's odd to have. It's rather pathetic to possess just because it's slow. It's a hatchback. It's ugly. But I thought, you know what, it would fit right in this oddball garage of mine. Alrighty guys, that pretty much wraps it up for this last and final garage in the mini series of me showing off all my personal vehicles, showcase style I guess you could say. Yes, this garage is definitely my oddball garage, I guess that's what I could call it, but with the exception of a few vehicles. Some vehicles are more desirable than others. For example, a lot of players would rather have the Faction or maybe the Lurcher or the Ruiner, whatever. And yes, these vehicles aren't particularly something you see cruising around in an online session, I guess you could say. But to me, they're unique, so that's why they're all here together in this garage as the oddball garage. But anyways, when it comes to this series wrapping up, I guess it comes to the question, what am I going to be doing next? I am not totally sure. I'm contemplating doing a dash cam series or maybe another type of simulator series, but if you care to look into my channel, I'm into just about any type of vehicle, so maybe who knows, we'll see. But I'll definitely keep you posted, so if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you might find out some more information there as well as here on YouTube. But anyways, if you did enjoy the video, a like rating would be awesome, would be appreciated, so on and so forth. And if you care to subscribe for some more content like this, as much as I will try to upload as often as possible, at least once a week, if not twice, maybe 3 times, who knows. But with that out of the way guys, I guess I will see you guys in another video sometime soon.